Good morning everyone, it's Bren here and welcome to my summer garden here in Australia where I've got a lot to show you this week. I'll be starting off doing a garden harvest of corn, but it's not your standard yellow corn, it's an older variety called glass gem, and when you see it, it's like it's out of a fairy tale book. It's just so magical. We'll also take a look at a garden pest, one of the biggest garden pests I have to deal with here during summertime, the Australian fruit fly. I'll go through what kind of damage it does and its life cycle and how I try and prevent it from destroying lots of my fruiting crops. Plus there's lots more happening, so please just sit back and relax for a few minutes. Grab yourself a hot beverage because I know a lot of you up there in the Northern Hemisphere are going through a terrible cold snap at the moment. Just relax, switch off and join me here in the summer garden. I've got 3 different areas around the garden where there are corn plants, each being a different variety. And just here beside the dahlia bed is the glass gem corn. Ideally for this variety, you should wait until these husks have completely dried off, but curiosity got the better of me during the week and I picked off one of these. Here it is, a real beauty. Before I harvest another one off these plants, I did want to speak to you just very briefly about the history of this corn. Glass gem corn originates from North America, quite an old variety dating back to the Native Americans. It's thanks to Carl Barnes of Oklahoma and Greg Schoen of New Mexico for bringing these rainbow corn back into general circulation in 2008. I'm back over at my little patch and I'm going to harvest this one, so it's pretty easy. I just run my hands down and kind of snap it off. You see, there we go. This one is off the same plant as the one I harvested during the week, so I reckon they'll probably look quite similar. If you live in Australia, I actually purchased these seeds from an Australian seed company. I'll put the name up on the screen. Oh, look at this one, it's looking beautiful, just like the other one I picked. See that up there, the way it's kind of been, looks like it's been chewed. I know this is probably rude in the moment, but that to me looks like there's been some garden pest at it, probably rats, unfortunately, because we have had quite a lot of them in the garden this year. Yeah, so if you have grown corn before, or even if you haven't, corn is really not that difficult to grow at all, and this particular variety is just the same as growing your standard corn. It's really quite easy and it's so much fun as well, especially if you've got kids. Like, this would really get them into gardening, I think. Look how beautiful, and it almost looks surreal. Because I harvested this one a little bit early, what I'll do with this now is allow it to dry for a week or two. I'll put it on the in the sunroom on the windowsill, and then at that stage I'll be able to remove all of these lovely kernels and I can do one of, actually more than 2 things, but what I do intend to use these for is to make popcorn, and when it gets to that stage I'll share the process with you in a couple of weeks. There's a few things to show you this week over here in the raised garden bed area. Starting off over at the entryway, I want to give you an update on these red noodle snake beans. For those of you who have been following along for a while, you know that I grow these noodle snake beans every year. Actually, I was just having to think about it, and this is the 3rd summer now that I'm sharing my garden here on YouTube. There's a number of different reasons why this particular variety is on my must grow list, and number 1 is because they taste delicious. Secondly, they grow at an incredibly fast speed. Another interesting thing about them that I like is that when you cook them, they don't turn green like a lot of other varieties do, like your king purples. And you know what? Something that's really important to me is that gardening is fun and enjoyable, and growing food like this is really great for my kids. It gets them engaged and excited about gardening. Well, that's the plan. They're not always that excited about it, but you know, yeah, so they're really long as well. They can reach up to 55 centimeters, which is quite impressive. This is the sea holly plant, which I grew from seed. I did have a lot more seedlings, but they didn't survive to full maturity. But you know what? I really have the drive now to be more successful with this plant next year, and hopefully I'll be showing you maybe 8 or 9 of them. Next up, I'm a little bit nervous. I always do get nervous, but I want to be real with you. This is the area that I had planned to make into a beautiful large garden bed this summer, and as you can see, it did not work out. It's completely covered with weeds. I ended up putting this project at the bottom of the list. I think I might have taken on a bit too much this year, like with my new dahlia patch and getting that section down in the fan garden looking good. I did clear it out a couple of times, but with the weather we have had, it's just been the most perfect conditions this year for everything to get out of control. But it is what it is, and I do need to get on top of it before some of these weeds start to set seed. Oh my goodness. Anyway, I just wanted to show you, let you know what's happening. There are a lot of borage plants around the garden. These have all self-seeded, and I just let them grow where they could find some space because I know the bees absolutely love them. There are so many of these yellow banana capsicums. There's also Burgundy okra to harvest in these raised beds too. Something very exciting just happened, so I came over to this area to show you these globe artichokes. That one of them looks like it's going to be flowering soon, and guess what I noticed on the ground? A little baby blue-tongued lizard, and that's actually the second one that I've seen this week. I think there might be a bit of a family living around in this space. I'm now over by the entryway to the fan garden. I really want to give you an update on this salvia. Do you remember I showed you this back in springtime when I bought it for about $5 as a little tube stock? It was in a tiny little pot, and look how big the plant has grown. It's just had the most perfect conditions here this summer for it to develop into full maturity. And this to me is such a great example of how you can achieve a nice garden on a budget. What I do when I go shopping for plants is I have a really good look around the garden centre, because oftentimes, especially with the more popular varieties, you will find that they are sold in different size pots, which naturally have different price points. So what you can do is go and maybe buy the smallest plant, and oftentimes I find from my experience that they do all tend to catch up in the end, and it just means you've saved yourself a few bucks which you can spend elsewhere in the garden, or you know, go and have a coffee or something. I think I've figured out what this self-seeded pumpkin vine is. Remember I showed it to you last week? Well, I discovered down here this on the plant, and to me, if you take a closer look, you can see that it's starting to form these little warts on its skin. It looks like it's going to be a pimply squash. I'm down in the fan garden, standing by the entryway to the raised garden bed area, and I have something to show you here which I discovered only during the week. It's a bit disappointing, but at least I made the discovery and I should be able to fix the problem. In this row, well, they're not really rows anymore because the plants have flopped over so much. The pathways are no longer clear. But anyway, most of the plants are doing well. This is a chilli, a orange habanero, and I checked it the other day. It had lots of lovely fruit coming on, but then I had a look a little bit further down and I noticed there was quite a lot of them, like this one here, that were orange, but look, they are completely damaged. Now I'm going to open this one up to show you, but I am warning you that it's a little bit gross. What is in here is one of the biggest garden pests here during summertime. Actually, before I open it, let me just quickly explain who has done this damage. So here in Australia, in this part of where I live and other parts in different states, we have to deal with the Queensland fruit fly. So these flies are very different to the ones that you find in your kitchen, you know, hovering around your fruit bowl, those little brown flies. Do you see that little maggot crawling around? He's kind of disappeared. Oh no, he's coming over to me. I had to put it down. I just couldn't hold it anymore. So what's happened here is the Queensland female fruit fly has laid her eggs inside this chilli. And unfortunately, it's not just limited to these. They also lay their eggs in, for example, tomatoes or eggplants. These eggs hatch into maggots and the maggots eat the fruit from the inside, eventually making their way out through the skin. The maggots fall to the ground, bury themselves into the soil and turn into pupae. And after a few weeks, they emerge as fruit fly, and the cycle just keeps on going if the conditions are right. They are a huge problem here, and as you can see, they can destroy all of my hard work. This is why I am like such an advocate for those fruit bags. Like these here covering my tomatoes. They form a barrier. They're very effective stopping these fruit flies getting in and destroying these tomatoes. The only thing is I didn't end up putting them around my chilies, but I think I might do with the rest that was on that plant that you just saw. Okay, let's look at some pretty stuff now because those last few clips were kind of gross. This plant here is the Mexican sunflower. I love growing these, as you know, or you might know already, because they're one of Monty Don's favourite summer annuals. And just to even get a little taste of what he grows in his garden makes me so happy. I'm delighted where that is. I think it's going to look really beautiful when in full flower. I think it will really complement these hot biscuit amaranths. On this archway I have the Tennessee Dancing Gourd. They haven't really been growing very much over the last few weeks. The plant itself isn't looking very healthy. I've got a lot of foliage like this, plus a bit further down some of the foliage has completely died off. I hope they do get a bit larger, but if not, that's okay. I can still use them for decoration, I guess. I will save some seeds and try and grow them again next year. I think that's about all I can fit in for this week. It's just starting to pour down, so I'm going to head inside so I don't get absolutely soaked. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you again next Friday.